Hi, it's Lucy here from Inclusive Change and Inclusive Change at Work. I've got a new website thing, icaw-cic.com/home. This is the first live I've done in a long time, but we have been recording and we've been putting stuff out for digital wellbeing, our conference that we are running in April in Bristol. You can find out more at our website, whichever way I need to point. I need to learn which way to point. But today, for something different, and just because I wanted to talk about access to work. I want to talk about supporting neurodivergent people in the workplace. And I wanted to bring a guest in. So I'm going to bring my guest online, which is Rob from JobAide. And we're going to have a bit of a chat over the next half an hour or so about what it means to be neurodivergent and what it means to be working and be neurodivergent. So, without further ado, hi, Rob.
Hello.
Hi. Now, as you say that, at that moment, my picture froze. But I'm sure it's all going swimmingly. It'll be absolutely fine. So, Rob, welcome to being online and on our live. As I say, first one I've done in a very long time in terms of a live. So nerves are a bit there, to be quite honest with you, but I think we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. We've been talking a while about doing this and actually catching up and finding out all about access to work. But before we get into that, can I ask you to tell us a bit about you and what you do?
Okay, so I am a freelancer and I've been doing so since the first COVID lockdown, well, a bit afterwards in 2020. And I was late diagnosed with ADHD, and we suspect I also have Tourette's because I have vocal tics and motor tics as well. And obviously, being late diagnosed with ADHD, that all came as a bit of a shock. And I ended up, the long story cut short is that we ended up here where I am the founder of JobAide.co.uk. And it's one of my many projects I've got in the pipeline at the moment, but being ADHD. But this one I'm particularly passionate about because I set up a website based entirely on my personal experience of claiming access to work and trying to claim it, going through the system, the good bits, the bad bits. And essentially what I wanted to do was set up a website that makes the whole process not only easier, but a bit clearer, and to make sure people are getting the right support in the first place, but also from the other side of it, where support workers are making sure that they're getting the right clients as well.
It's a bit of a complicated process, access to work. And actually, if people are watching, can you define or explain what access to work is?
So access to work is a government funded grant that that enables people with disabilities or mental health conditions to, as it says, access work. But it's not about necessarily getting people into employment and finding them the jobs. It's about retaining, basically, when they're in the job itself, performing to the best of their ability and making sure they've got any accommodations in place that are beyond the reasonable adjustments from the Equalities Act. So some things, the Equalities Act is there for a reason, but there's some things it doesn't cover, especially in terms of things like equipment or a support worker funding. And that's where access to work comes in. It offers the opportunity for people to have that support where they might not need it, or for physical disabilities, things like travel, for example.
So I'm just going to pick up on a few things that we just said there. Reasonable adjustments. Are you able to say what that means?
A reasonable adjustment is essentially anything within the realms that an employer is able to implement to accommodate somebody at work to work to the best of their ability. So, for example, it might be that if somebody has, somebody might need a longer break time for whatever reason, or they might need longer time to conduct certain tasks. Maybe if you're dyslexic, for example, there might be more flexibility in terms of any mistakes and errors that are made within emails and things, or implementing procedures in place to counteract that,
to
essentially.
get in and things. Yeah, I get you. And so those are things. So there's a few things that we've started to talk about here. So access to work is the government fund that individuals can apply for. Yeah.
Yeah.
And reasonable adjustments are things that employers really should put in place in the first place.
Yeah, and I mean the sad thing is a lot of them don't. But
Yeah,
it's that's not what access to work is for. It's not there to accommodate the reasonable adjustments. It's there for the things that you might have the best employer in the world, but they still might not be able to fund you support. They might be able to buy expensive software. They might not be able to, like I say, provide a support worker or something like that. So that's kind of where it comes into handy. The next step, or if you're self-employed as
totally.
well. That's the thing.
Yes, and I think so. You're self-employed, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in terms of self-employment, how do you find it? How do you um, find that you need adjustments or things in place to help you work more effectively?
Yeah, so it depends on the person. Obviously, these things are always assessed on a case by case basis. So everybody's personal
Mhm.
circumstances will be different, which is
Yeah.
why at the time we're recording this, they don't specify that you need a proven diagnosis of a condition, because
Mhm.
for things like mental health, for example, or it might be that somebody is just to give another example, like going through I don't know, say you've got a partner that's terminally ill and you need that
Yeah.
support in that meantime. You might not necessarily have a diagnosis of anything in particular. So it's case by case basis. For me personally, it's more things like with my ADHD, very classic traits of bad organization, time management, and calendar entries, administration. I struggle with form filling in particular.
Yeah.
I find forms a very daunting process, and they just trigger my anxiety. And I'm also getting funding for ADHD coaching and coping strategies in the workplace. So I work with an ADHD coach that is helping me to um, basically helping me process my thoughts and the way I work and how I can overcome these challenges.
Uh, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I know because inclusive change at work and inclusive change have been part of your world and support in for a while now. And one of the things I'd say though, Rob, is the process to get access to work and to make that application. Is it neurodivergent friendly?
No, not at all. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a simple form online. It doesn't take too long to fill in, a couple of minutes. If
Yeah.
of course, if you don't have any accessibility issues, you may need somebody to assist with that in that respect. But from the perspective of compared to other forms, like if you've ever applied for something like PIP, for example, it's a nightmare. Compared to all those other daunting application processes, it's
Yeah,
relatively
it's a doddle,
simple.
isn't it?
The
Yeah.
issue comes with the way it's hard to explain in detail, but the actual process once you've applied is a huge there's it's kind of like a minefield. There's not much information about what goes on. There's not much information
Mhm.
about what like the vetting process isn't perfect. It's finding
Yeah.
out what you need. I had that myself with my first application, first time round.
Yeah.
I ended up getting offered the wrong support. I didn't need the support they offered me, and that caused
Mm.
problems with my situation. So it was only because I knew what I was doing second time round that I got the right support in the end, which was yourself and Keza, my coach. So it's been a challenge,
Do
and I
you
think a lot of
think
people are facing these challenges.
that the late diagnosis has an impact on that? Because if you don't know what you need and you don't know how to work differently, it's hard to articulate sometimes, isn't it? Oh, I this would help me, but you don't know that that exists.
Yeah, you don't know that support exists, so you don't know that thing would help you either. It's not as simple as there are some cases. The reason I use dyslexia a lot as an example of a condition I don't have is
Mm,
because I specialize with words. I'm a writer by trade as a freelancer. I have a linguistics degree,
mm,
so that's my area of interest. But if you struggle with comprehension, if you struggle with letters and numbers and things, then there are tools that you can get funding for, or you can use yourself to, like things like Grammarly and all these other proof. Dragon, I think, is another one. These kind of like softwares. But again, people don't know that access to work will sometimes fund these softwares.
yeah.
Of course, we have to be careful what we say they will or won't fund. It's just based on our own experiences of what we've seen. Everything is a case by case basis. I do have to say that. It's not you've got, it's not you've got dyslexia, you'll get this, you've got ADHD, you'll get a support
No,
worker. It's not
not at all.
the case. Which brings me on
And
to my next pain point, actually. I was going to say my
yeah,
next pain point, which I'll talk about in a minute, is the depending on which caseworker you get at the access to work side of things, the funding is very erratic. Some people get awarded way more than you would expect. Some people don't get awarded enough. Some people get the wrong funding. Some people get absolutely spot on first time. And
yeah,
from what I've seen, it does seem to be dependent on which caseworker you get as to what the end result is. And it's nothing to do with necessarily their understanding of your circumstances. It might be something at their side of things. We just don't know. So I think that's one of the hardest things in terms of what I'm doing at JobAide, is saying to people that yes, it is a case by case basis, but there's no set, it's not like PIP where they have set tiers of funding. They say, okay, if you get the basic amount, you get this. If you get the mobility, you get this. It's not like that. It's such a varied.
Yeah, you kind of,
exactly what you can and can't get.
I think something like JobAide is really helpful and really needed. So tell me a bit about JobAide. Tell me what.
Sorry, Lucy, you broke up there. What was it you were saying?
Sorry,
Tell you about JobAide.
Tell me a bit about jobaide.co.uk. Tell me what it does and how it alleviates some of those pain points.
So the website originally was set up a couple of years back for the reason of these pain points. I wanted it to be more of a blog because I'm, like I say, I'm a writer, I'm a blogger by trade. I run a neurodiversity blog and I've written blogs for clients. Originally, that was just what I know. It was just going to be a blog about access to work, about jobs, job aid and job support. And then it kind of, that's why I bought the domain. And then I realized actually there's an opportunity here to really, for people to learn from my experiences personally of going through the system, and not just going through the system and getting support. I need going through the system and all the pain points I suffered. I would say I had such a bad experience first time round that it's put me in one of the best positions to say what is like to be able to know what people need in terms of at that
How to
point
get
of
through
the
the
process.
process.
Yeah, because everybody else, there seems to be a lot of, even though there's some common choke points in the system. For example, they tell you to go and get 3 quotes for a support worker. Well, where do you look? Like that was my thing. Was like, what am I looking for? Like, I don't know. I don't
Who do
know
I
what.
ask?
Yeah, I'm not. Do I ask a VA? Do I ask somebody who's actually called a support worker? Do I ask a coach? Like, what am I looking for? I don't know what I'm looking for. A workplace coach and ADHD coaches, do they need any qualifications? What, there's so many different
Yeah.
aspects to it that it was just throw you into the deep end and say, find a job aid or find, I was like, what's a job aid? I didn't know what a job aid was before I
Most people
started.
don't know what that word means.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
what
So,
is a JobAide?
and there's a few sort of, this is, the website is in its infancy, in its new iteration, but going forward, a lot of the blog posts, for example, are going to answer these questions. They're going to be a bit more explaining what the government website doesn't explain. The things like, what is a job aid? Okay, well, the difference between, I'll give you an example. So the difference between somebody like a job aid and a virtual assistant, or like an admin assistant, is that the job aid is specifically assigned to, the grant funding is specifically assigned to you to help you complete tasks that you can't complete, or you struggle to complete within a certain time frame. So, for example, that might be, I have anxiety with phone calls, or it might be that, like I struggle with taking notes in meetings. So it might be that like working with yourselves as a company, like
Yep.
when I'm on
Your
meetings,
JobAide.
somebody else takes notes. Yeah, exactly. Whereas an admin assistant might do tasks that you, or a PA, for example, they would do things that you are capable of doing but don't have the time to do, or like, you're fully
Yeah.
stretched. So they're there to support you with tasks that you're perfectly capable of doing. Like I have no problems with, like, in my case, writing a blog post.
Yep.
I struggle with social media because the graphics and infographics, I really struggle to comprehend the visual side of things. So that's part of my funding, is that. But for me specifically, writing my own blogs, I don't
That's
need
not
help
the
with that.
problem.
If I say to us, an admin assistant, can you write this for me? That's not what the funding is
That's
there
not
for.
what that's not what it's there for. But organizing you and supporting to get you to the point of writing that blog, that may be something that a job aid can help with, in making sure that you've
Yeah.
got the diary space, or that you've blocked out the time.
yeah, the accountability is a huge part of it. I've noticed, certainly with ADHD, especially. Not just my own case, but I have a client that I work with a couple of hours a week, and accountability has been a huge thing for them as well. So it's it's a big thing. It's a big thing because you, especially when you're working, if you are self-employed or you work from home or you're on your own and you don't necessarily have that accountability to hand, it can be, I mean, first of all, it can be quite lonely, as everybody knows, working through COVID, but
Yes.
it can also be so easy to get distracted. And it might be positive distractions. And one of the things, to give you an example from the, not the job aid so much, but the ADHD coaches and coping strategies, my coach has been really good at helping me understand what's okay and not okay productivity wise. So the very fact that, like, for me, it's getting into this room at 9 o'clock. And if I'm in this room at 9 o'clock, I might not do any work that day, but I'm still in this room at 9 o'clock. So that is a
The
goal
habit is
achieved for
forming.
myself. Whereas
Yeah.
yesterday, we're not all perfect. We have our bad days. I had a
Yeah.
bad day yesterday and couldn't get into this room at 9 o'clock. And I ended up panicking and freezing. And that was my first bad day in a while. But it was, these things happen, and the coaches and job aids are there to support you with and say, sometimes, everybody needs like
A
reassurance
little
that what they're doing is
a
the
little
right
bit,
thing.
yeah, that little bit of support. You mentioned the word accountability. What does that mean sometimes? What
So
does accountability mean?
okay, so from personal experience, accountability is just having, for me, it's just having somebody there, or a goal, or achieving a goal with somebody in mind. So it could be, in most cases, it's me working alongside yourself or Kate, who's the other
Yeah,
support worker that I
yeah, yeah,
have. Working alongside one of you in, I might have a list of tasks that need doing, but I know that if I'm not on a call with you, I know that I'm learning myself now that I know it won't get done. And if I have those days where it won't get done but needs getting done, then I'll be like, can you hop on a call with me and we can, work through these tasks.
yeah,
There'll be other days when, excuse me, there'll be other days when I'm perfectly fine of just getting on my own thing and doing my own thing, and it's not a problem. I
yeah,
don't need anybody around. I will just get on with it. But I
yeah.
don't, obviously with ADHD especially, you don't know until the day what that's going to look like. So
You absolutely don't know. And also, there are many people who have been struggling without medication because there's been a
yeah,
medication shortage over the past
I'm
sort
one
of
of them.
6 to 8 months. Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
went 5 months.
there are,
5 months.
yeah, there are days when actually productivity is at zero, and then you go into that whole how do you feel about this? Like, then you go into the rejection sensitivity, the overthinking, and the catastrophizing. So sometimes is it helpful to have somebody who can help push you a little bit and stretch you
Yeah,
to kind of see, like, let's move
but
on from that. Let's get stuff done.
and I don't think it's just that. I think that's on that in my personal case, absolutely. I think that's right, but that's not going to be the same
Yeah.
for everybody. So for other people, um, it might be like the actual completion of the task rather than starting the task. Like for me, a lot of the
Yes.
time, it's I will, like, I do, if I start a task and I'm really into it, I tend to be great at the middle bits. I tend to be like either really good at starting a task and then not finishing it, or I'm good at the in between. So my tasks I tend to have to do in batches. But there will be some people that are really good at starting tasks and can't finish tasks, or vice versa. So it all depends on the person.
Yeah, it's very individual. Right. I'm going to bring you back a bit to Job Aide again. All right.
Yes,
So what happens on the website? So what can, and I've just realized we should have really brought the website up, but we're not
I
being
thought about
very,
that earlier. I
very
forgot. Yeah.
yeah. But what does Job Aid do? So how can people find it? What happens when you go on it?
Okay. So at the moment, it's just obviously jobaid.co.uk. We've
Yeah,
set up a social media presence, but we don't have one yet. So the it's always, the tags are nearly always at JobAide UK, basically.
yeah,
Um, so with jobaid.co.uk itself, um, the website is more of an informational hub, in the sense of it will tell you what you potentially, what access to work offers funding for in certain examples, things like case studies. There's my own personal stories on there about my, like, we touched upon some of it in this conversation today, but put my story up on there. There's going to be in the blog some informational documents, so things like expanding on what the Gov website is saying, but answering questions that people have that aren't on there. Like I said, what is a job aid? That's a good example of one. So there will be blogs about that kind of thing on there. From the side of it of an applicant for if somebody's applying for access to work, we don't necessarily, we're not one of the companies or like, websites that do the work, do the application process for you. It's not a done for you process. But we do offer sort of guidance along the way from our own experience about what the next steps are, or answer people's questions and concerns. And the sort of the biggest pain point, which is why I set it up in the first place, was that I didn't know where to look for quotes for a support worker.
Mm-hmm.
So what this website does is it will give you access to a network of people behind the scenes, not just myself, but there are other people that I'm liaising with at the moment who we can try and find you the best support that you need and get the quotes from the right places, so you can make your own decision about which quote you choose to go for. So it's different to an agency in the sense of an agency will take you on their books and they will have a network of support workers that they outsource the work to, or a full-time employees of the company.
That's what we do. So inclusive change at work, that's what we do. We have those staff, or we have associates that can deliver that work, but we take it on as an organization. And
whereas my website is more of a meeting hub. I joke it's like matchmaking for it. It's like a dating website for work. It's like a matchmaking service. So the idea is that we are there to help the claimants find the right support worker for them, but it also works the other way around as well. So for the support workers and coaches, I found a lot of cases with people I've networked with, they're traditionally not the best people at getting clients on board, because they're not, when I say that, what I mean is that they're great at what they do, brilliant at the administrative job, but just by the nature of their personality, they're not salespeople. And
they're more support people.
Very often, support people. So very often they'll undersell themselves, and maybe they'll, if somebody's struggling, they might take on a client that's not right for them, or they might be just anxious about finding the right client. Or the other side of things is that a lot of support workers and VAs are very niche in their support network based on their personal experience. If somebody's got experience in a very specific sector, then like the legal profession or academia or whatever that may look like, then they might need somebody who's worked in that same industry to understand the complexities of the support that's needed. Especially like we say, an academic professional, for example. Like I know you've had a couple, Lucy, that you've inquired with. If you've got somebody who is a professional I say they're a lecturer in, I don't know, civil engineering, then it would probably help to have a VA that has some experience in that industry, or a science qualification or something like that, or they may want to work with somebody.
We match.
So these things. Sorry, I was going to say these things match up. Yeah. Well,
we're both over each other. It's fine. It's fine. No, the matching really, really helps. And for us as an agency, we look at, okay, what does this client need? Who do I have who would be suitable? So, if I have somebody who's brilliant at proofreading, then if I have a dyslexic client that comes to us, then actually that person might be the person to match them with. Similarly, the academic side of things, we've got academics and professionals who work in certain areas, and fortunately I've got people who can match them in terms of understanding that kind of stuff. So it is really important. Something else I wanted to touch on, something that I'm always talking about, safeguarding. All right, this whole world of providing support work and working with clients who are neurodivergent and disabled, it adds another layer of safeguarding, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it's not always as obvious safeguarding as you would expect. It's not always the sort of traditional DBS checks and things like that. It goes beyond that. There's certain things like, for example, making sure that people have personal experience working with that condition in particular, because there may be certain nuances that are that
we don't pick
Best way I
up
can explain it is,
if we've not
yeah. So,
experienced
for
it.
example,
Yeah,
one of my clients on the books, without going into too much detail, um, has auditory processing disorder. But then I'll be honest, I didn't know what that was before I started working with her,
yeah,
so I had to learn a
yeah,
lot about that. So, from my own personal experience, one of the things I've learned along this journey along the way is that the safeguarding side of things is imperative. It's really important, and it's making sure people are getting the right support, and not just. And it's not. It's sometimes it's innocent. Sometimes it might be that um, if you're working with somebody autistic and they don't necessarily understand the boundaries,
yes,
maybe they become too friendly with the support worker, not for anybody's no fault,
yeah,
and no bad intentions, but then you need to know how to deal with that and how to accommodate that, or being able to communicate effectively with the other person that you're supporting, um, because that person may not always be putting their point across in the right way either.
no, and there are also things around privacy, GDPR,
Yeah,
data, that kind of thing. We've been talking this week because we're working with some clients who are um, employees, and is it okay to go into meetings and note take if we haven't done the GDPR training as part of that organization? Those kind of things are big things that kind of come up. We've kind of strayed, I know, we've kind of strayed out of your realm, because I know that at JobAide, that's not jobaide.co.uk, that's not your purpose, is to kind of do that stuff. You leave that stuff to the people who were
yeah,
wanting to
exactly.
supply the support work.
Exactly. I mean, fundamentally, like, I don't hide the fact that I am a freelancer. Fundamentally, I'm a
Yeah,
blogger. Do a bit of everything. I'm an admin. I'm a
yeah,
content creator. That's not my realm, but that's why I have the support network around me to help me and assist with that kind of thing.
yeah,
With the website specifically, I moving forward, even though I do support a client, I'm not offering my personal support services. This is
yeah,
more me running the website. I'm operating the website to get the right
yeah,
people on board and make sure that they're getting the right clients and vice versa. And by the very nature of it, it focuses on quality. It focuses on quality over quantity, because hopefully, if we can get that right first time, then brilliant. You're with that support worker for as long as your duration is, and beyond, and vice versa. So in that respect, we might not be seeing repeat custom from a support worker, for example. And
yeah.
if anything, sometimes if we do see repeats, we'd be worried if the
Might
same
think,
person came to us every
why is that
3 months.
then?
Be like, why are you dropping clients after 3 months? This is a long term commitment. Of course,
Yeah, because it
everybody's welcome to
generally is,
come
isn't
as long
it?
as they wish. There's no tying to, you're not tied to that one person necessarily, but if it's not the right fit for you, it's not the right fit for you. But we're focusing less on the numbers and more on getting it right first time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that means things like having your insurance in place, and having, like, if somebody
Yeah.
comes, if somebody wants to be a support worker, or advertise their services on your website, what kinds of things are you expecting them to provide, or to be able to demonstrate?
So there will be a few core fundamentals, things like just listing any previous experience, being ICO registered with the Information Commissioner's Office.
Mm-hmm.
A DBS check is incredibly useful, because it means then we can say to our clients, this person is already DBS checked, whether it's basic or enhanced or whatever that looks like. We can
Yeah,
say if they've got any personal experience with neurodiversity or mental health or physical disabilities.
yeah,
Um, Again, it's not compulsory, but it's also what the client requests. A lot of the people that we see coming through as inquiries they tend to be people who are interested in working alongside somebody who is also neurodivergent, or also has
yeah,
or has been similar experience, because they understand them better. If you just go to when the way Access to Work word it with the 3 quotes from support workers is, you can go and get 3 quotes from big agencies, and if they're not trained up on neurodiversity, if they're not natural, if they've not got experience of it, they they don't understand. And I think that the quality of the work suffers. And I've heard of it a couple of times where people have gone to the wrong, gone to any old person, so to speak, not done, and not
yeah,
I would say not done the research, in the sense of, like, this comes back around to not knowing what you're looking for. You know,
Yeah.
unless you actively know that you need to, you would benefit from somebody who's had this experience or has these traits or these qualifications, then you would just take
You lost. It's a minefield,
yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
lost.
And it's
Yeah, lost.
yeah.
And I think you're also in danger of just taking anything on because it's the first. You're like, I need help. Oh God, here's somebody who'll help me. I'll take that. When in reality, that's
And
not what you need.
that's that element of vulnerability again, isn't it? And you're kind of like, I've struggled, and that's why I'm here now asking about access to work, because generally most people don't come to ask about access to work unless they've got a problem or they've experienced a problem and somebody said, maybe you should go and find out about this because this could really help you. Usually I find actually that it's the first time that anybody has kind of gone, here's something that can actually change your life. But knowing how to access it is really difficult.
Yeah, I mean that there's no secret that's obviously a deliberate plan because if everybody could access it, then it sort of dilutes the service.
Yeah,
So
exactly. There has to be. Yeah.
There's a tipping point. I say tipping point. It might be if they just put if they put national adverts out on television, then everybody would be applying and they'd be overwhelmed.
Oh my goodness! Imagine that. Oh,
so there's
crikey, we'd be inundated.
With these things, it's always a balancing act. But
yeah,
for me, it's not necessarily about nothing that Job Aide sets out to do is to make access to work like we're not here to overly, if we ever criticize the application process, it's purely for the necessity of improving it. And if it didn't need improving, this website wouldn't exist. So that's what I always say is that if it's doing its job, then you shut my website down, job done. But it's not. It's the key is there for.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. In a perfect world, we wouldn't need to exist to be able to. Yeah, but we're not yet.
Exactly.
Quite.
So we it's from the Job Aide side. To summarize, from the Job Aide side of things, from the claimant side, if you're a claimant claiming access to work and you're stuck, then you come to Job Aide. You can read through the website and drop us an inquiry, and we'll do our best to answer it. Or maybe in some cases we can arrange a meeting. In some cases we can signpost you in the right direction. We can source. If you've been asked to get 3 quotes, we can help you source those 3 quotes from the right people. Or at least we think we will put 3 people forward and then you can choose yourself which one you prefer. So there's no obligations in that respect. And from the support worker side of things or the coach side of things, then we are going to start putting listings up. We're going to start having listings of people based on their qualifications and their abilities and their experience, and then we will hopefully that'll generate customers and leads for that, clients and leads for that person as well. So it's kind of a two-way. It benefits both sides. Right?
Yeah, I think Rob, I think it's fantastic. It's incredible, and from a personal point of view, to see your progress and how this has developed over the past year. This isn't a flash in the pan. You've just had an idea and it's happened. This has been a year, 2 years in the making, I'd say, for you, and it's incredible. Thank you.
No worries, you're welcome. It's certainly been a learning curve. But hopefully, like I say, if I'm seeing the successes, I'm seeing the rewards, and it is a long way to go. But I'm seeing an improvement in myself and my confidence, especially. So I'm showing myself off as living proof that the system is working in that respect. If you can find the right support worker and you can find the right funding and the right, like for example, in our case, I said, I'm struggling at the moment. I need an ADHD coach. I need a workplace coach. And
we
then you helped me get that coach, and that coach is working wonders for me. So it's like, that's an example of where having those people to help in the first place, you need them to be able to move forward. So
I had a conversation with somebody earlier who said, but if I take this person on and this person on, if I have lots of different people, I've got to manage them, and I then need a support worker to help manage the support workers. So we were like, okay, all right, we're not going down that route. It all got a little bit confusing. Right, Rob, I'm going to wrap things up, I think. I want to say thank you. This has been an incredibly enlightening chat. I hope anybody that's been watching has picked up a few tips and a few hints. JobAide.co.uk is the website we've been talking about. fantastic. I hope we'll be back at some point. So
Yeah.
that would be great to see progress. But if anybody wants to get in touch, info@jobaide.co.uk, or just pop on the website and fill in a contact form, and you'll get a response back that way. Thank you.
That's great.
Right.
Thanks for having us as well, Lucy. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.